McIndoe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to begin by paying a compliment to my good friend and colleague, the next member for Dunedin North, Michael Woodhouse, for his scholarly but well-grounded discourse, and also my great friend, the member for Whanganui, Chester Burrows, for his intelligent, compassionate analysis of this government's practical and effective measures to help young New Zealanders, and especially those young New Zealanders who are at risk of going well and truly off the rails and having a life of no hope and no worthwhile future. Mr. Burrows gave us a very clear indication of what this government is doing and this Prime Minister's determination to assist those young people, ably supported by the Minister for Social Development and all members on this side of the House. And it is a very comprehensive, very effective program, and Ms Chadwick asked me what. I'm delighted she's done that, because I'm happy to tell her again, because, Mr Speaker, they're incredibly slow learners on the other side. They think that if they keep saying the government has no plan often enough, that a few people are going to start to believe it. And yet I have lost count of the number of times that they've been told what the plan is. In fact, they were told what the plan was in the election campaign in 2008 because we campaigned on it. There are no surprises. We said, this is what we need to do, this is what we will do, and since 2008 we've been getting on and we've done it. And we continue to do it, and we're rolling out new initiatives, and it's a very effective working plan, which, Ms Curran, it's very effective, and the reason is because your party left this nation in dire straits, and in 2.5 years, despite the most challenging conditions and some of the most appalling natural disasters well out of our control, we have turned things around. And the future is now looking better for this country than it has done for a long time. Mr Speaker, the Labor members really don't like acknowledging it, but they squandered the best decade in my lifetime of economic conditions, the best opportunities, and they bequeathed to us a decade of deficits. A decade of deficits at the end of the best economic conditions we've had. So we've heard this afternoon for some very good speeches on this side of the House, and how do the opposition reply? They chant over there, where's the plan, where's the jobs, even though they've been told many, many times. And the last speaker, Phil Twyford. Phil was the best they've been able to put up so far. Why? Because at least at the outset he did acknowledge what a fine speech Mr Burrows had delivered, and he acknowledged the fact that Mr Burrows had focused on some really important things that matter to New Zealand. But sadly, Mr Twyford then took us on his Twyford's tour of Te Tai Tokoro via Te Atato, where clearly he was royally entertained by the honourable and incomparable Tau Henare. And I'm glad he enjoyed that, because the rest of the tour obviously wasn't up to much, because the best he could do was deliver a few leaflets and realise that the future isn't very great for him in Te Atatu. But he really demonstrated, as did the speakers before him, the complete lack of detail in the Labor members' contributions, and the fact that they just rely solely on their catalogue of claptrap and cliches. And that is all it's been. So, Mr Speaker, I want to tell Ms Curran and Ms Chadwick and Mr Twyford that I thought this year's budget was an outstanding achievement by an excellent Minister of Finance in a focused and very effective government. Mr Speaker, not only was this an outstanding budget and an entirely appropriate one for our times, which I am very proud to support, I'm very proud to defend and explain it in my electorate, and along with my good friend Mr Bennett up in Hamilton, we are proud to campaign on it. And on both sides of the river, in the mighty city of Hamilton, we are getting a fantastic reaction to a wonderful budget, and the thing that they tell us over and over again up there is, thank goodness it's you lot in there running the country at the moment, because what an absolute pickle we would be if we had the other lot back. Ms Chadwick, that's exactly what they say, and when you enjoy your early retirement in Rotorua after the election, you'll find out that that'll be what people will say. You should have listened to us. We tried to tell you, you wouldn't get the message, and we had to tell you the hard way. Because, Mr Speaker, as I've said, Labor members hope if they keep saying there's no plan often enough, the public will believe it. But I'm telling Mr. Speaker and the House that members of the public don't believe it at all, because they can see what we're doing. So let me just remind the members opposite about the Job Ops program, about the Community Max program that we introduced, about the industry training, industry partnership places that we've promoted, about the Youth Guarantee, about the service academies. I wonder if those members opposite who have interjected constantly and said, where are the jobs and where is the plan, would just like to stop chirping and chanting for a moment, because I'm giving them exactly what they've asked for. I'm just a short way into a good list. There's the limited service volunteer scheme and the places that Mr. Burrows talked about, hugely important to people in my electorate and right around the country, for those young people who really need some intensive and compassionate intervention and a little bit of some real belief in them. Because the Labor opposition never believe in those people. They have this appalling mentality that there's about 20 to 25% of the New Zealand public, particularly young people, who will never amount to much, so you just put them in the too hard basket, you patronise them and you demean them with a lifetime on welfare, and you say that'll do. You don't worry about the fact that they can't ever seem to be able to get ahead. They don't worry about the fact that there is actually great potential in each and every one of those people. They have, for all their time in this House, believed in this mentality that welfare is good, education is not so good, job opportunities are not so good, and let's just condemn a growing number of New Zealanders to that pitiful future. Well, Mr. Speaker, I will never do that. That's such an appalling way of thinking that I am absolutely determined to do everything I can in the time that I have as a member of this House to defeat that mentality and to promote the best interests of those who most need the active intervention of a caring government. So, Mr. Speaker, those are some of the things that we're doing on the jobs front. In this year's budget, there was the new Skills for Growth scheme with 4,000 places to give employers a $5,000 subsidy to employ and train young people in high-demand industries. That's a significant initiative. Suddenly the Labor members have gone quiet. I wonder why. It's important. As I've said, this budget is widely supported throughout the country, but just for a moment I'm going to focus on the reaction of my own region. Now, the Waikato Times is certainly not a paper in the bed of the National Party. They take quite an independent stance. But in an editorial following the budget, we were told the following. The Labor Party leader, Phil Goff, is on the wrong track when he says he hopes to create up to $22 billion a year in new businesses by restoring tax credits to reward R&D. The snag is his intention to pay for this assistance by requiring farmers to pick up the formidable costs of their greenhouse gas emissions over 5 years. And Mr. Speaker, I was up at the field days just outside my electorate last week, and I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that the reaction to the government was outstanding, the mood was fantastic, and the one thing that came through time and time again was farmers saying, imagine if we had that Labor government back and they brought us into the emissions trading scheme before the rest of our international trading partners, those who we have to compete with on the international economy. They said, we're going to keep that party out of government for as long as we possibly can because they just don't understand. Back to the Waikato Times. Mr. Goff's plan would lift farm production costs and risk blunting the world competitiveness of our dairy and meat industries in an uncertain bid to sharpen the innovative edge of businesses generally. That amounts to an unacceptable economic gamble. Well, Mr. Speaker, we are living in times where the last thing we can do is indulge in unacceptable economic gambles. Budget 2011 sets out our next steps to build faster growth, to increase our national savings and create sustainable jobs built on savings, exports and productive investments. That is a summary of what this budget is all about. And over 3 years, we have achieved a huge amount to turn things around. The Labor Party don't like to admit the position they left us in, but it was dire. At the end of the best decade of economic conditions, they left us in the worst of conditions. I'm proud to be part of a government that is turning it around, and I'm going to be proud to be part of a government that continues to take us forward in the years ahead.
Sorry to interrupt the member.
Mr. Speaker.
David Bennett.